McMilroy.
It is meant to send a message to Hamas that this is only going to intensify and get worse for them if they do not at least allow the first phase to be extended.
Up to 90.
And good morning and welcome to the WSJM Morning Show video live stream. I'm Ken Lundberg. It's Wednesday, March 19th. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. And thank you to my special guest in studio this morning, MaryJo Schnell. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm a morning person.
I used to be. Or at least I thought I used to be.
Yeah. How are things today?
It's going well, honestly. Lots of things going on at the OutCenter. A lot of emerging news, but also some really great information coming across the wire, which is always good nationally.
We like good news.
Yeah, we do.
We like good news. MaryJo Schnell is the executive director of the OutCenter of Southwest Michigan, and so we'll be talking a little bit about her background. We'll talk about the OutCenter, its mission, and what it does in the community. We'll also talk about what's going on with the City of Benton Harbor.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
Because there's some frankly, I got to say, disturbing news about some. Well, we'll get into it, but the city is basically denied a permit without providing good reason. It sounds like
at this point,
yeah. So we'll talk about that. We'll get into those things and more coming up here on the WSJM Morning Show. First off, though, because we like to get road reports from people, it's too bad that you're not here 24 hours from now. Because today, I mean, the roads were just perfectly fine. It's a walk in the park today. Wait till tomorrow morning.
In Chicago, the saying is there's two seasons, winter and road construction. So, you know, this is what I know.
My wife, Stephanie, drove back from Wisconsin the other day, and she couldn't believe it. The construction had finally, it looked like, gotten done.
Yeah.
Something happened. Maybe they took the day off. Who knows? But it sailed right through. But, you know, that'll last for, what, a day?
I think so.
And then they'll start up again.
And then the cones come out.
Are you from Chicago originally?
Yeah, Elgin, actually, outside of Chicago, and then got the heck out of Elgin for a lot of reasons, in part because I'm queer.
Yeah.
Moved into Chicago, and that's actually really where I came out, found my community, found my voice, found myself.
Okay.
My mom's from Chicago, and she was always just like, remember, you have deep roots in that town, so that's where I went.
Okay. We'll talk all about that. We'll explore your background, your history. It's all coming up right here on the WSJM Morning Show. We've got local news coming up in just a moment, our weather forecast, sports from Dave Wolf, and more in just a few minutes. .05, good morning. It's the WSJM Morning Show, Wednesday, March 19th, and it's going to be a windy one. We have mostly cloudy skies expected today, 60% chance of showers, and maybe some evening thunderstorms. I'm kind of crossing my fingers hoping for thunderstorms because those are fun, as long as they're not too strong. Now, there's a possibility we could have some strong thunderstorms, so keep an eye on the weather for that. High today around 63 degrees, south winds 15 to 25 miles per hour, gusting up to 35 miles per hour. Tonight's forecast, cloudy skies, 80% chance of rain, changing potentially to snow this evening. Sorry about that. Low around 33 degrees, windy conditions, south winds 15 to 20 miles per hour, gusting to 40. Thursday, mostly cloudy, a 60% chance of snow, a high around 37. Northwest winds 10 to 20 miles per hour, gusting to 35. And then Friday, get back to partly sunny. Yeah, the high is going to be around 53 degrees on Friday. Not too bad at all. Into the weekend, it's going to cool off a little bit with another chance of precipitation. We will keep about a 30 to 40% chance of precipitation through Tuesday of next week. So for every day, there's a possibility. Our guest this hour in the WSJM studios, MaryJo Schnell. She's the executive director of the OutCenter of Southwest Michigan. And so we'll be talking with her in just a few moments about herself, the organization, and some of their recent run-ins with the City of Benton Harbor. That's coming up in just a few moments. So if you want to tune in for that, you can listen here on the radio. You can listen on our audio live stream by using the WSJM app, or you can go to Facebook or YouTube. Right now, we're broadcasting live on our video live stream. Some of the news that we're covering in the WSJM newsroom this morning, the City of St. Joseph will be paying more for ambulance service as service provider Medic One seeks to update its operational model. Public Safety Director Steve Newbecker told the St. Joseph City Commissioners, that is, on Monday, that Medic One is raising the per capita charge to the city from $8.43 per person to $10 per person per month.
We currently pay roughly $5,518 a month. The increase will increase to $7,201 a month.
However, Newbecker said St. Joseph's cost pales in comparison to other surrounding communities. That's because St. Joseph was one of the original Medic One owners. He noted New Buffalo, not an original founder, pays $72 per resident for the service. Medic One Director Jason Wiley told commissioners as the service has expanded to 17 municipalities around Berrien County, costs have gone up, requiring higher subsidies from the communities that they serve.
Medic One has pretty much operated the same way for the last 50 years. We were started in 1977 and our operation has stayed the same. We really need to update some operational changes. We really need to increase some operational efficiencies.
Wiley said some of the changes underway at the service to improve operations and efficiency probably should have been made about a decade ago. He offered to give a complete presentation to commissioners, something that Commissioner Michael Sorolla said he would like to see. Commissioners then approved the new rates. With the measles outbreak in Texas and Michigan reporting its first measles case of the year last week, some people are asking if they should get a measles vaccine booster. Dr. Jonathan Beyer is the Berrien County Medical Director and tells us if you had 2 measles shots after 1967, then a booster is not necessary. However, he says those who haven't been fully vaccinated should address that. While Berrien County hasn't had a measles case in about 20 years, Beyer said the illness is extremely contagious, and he's concerned about the relatively low vaccination rates in Michigan. He said health officials want herd immunity,
which is a large enough section of the population is immunized that the disease doesn't spread readily, and usually you need about 90 to 95% coverage to do that, and right now we're at about 86.9%.
That's the state rate for measles vaccination. In Berrien County, however, only about 80.2% of residents are vaccinated. Beyer says with vaccine hesitancy rising in recent years, health officials are concerned about the Texas outbreak.
It's a scary time in public health right now because we're very worried about seeing diseases that we had thought. I mean, measles was declared essentially eradicated in the United States 25 years ago, and now it's coming back.
Beyer says the best way to find out if you were fully vaccinated against the measles is to speak with your doctor. Of course, if some people may not be able to find out for sure if they got both shots as children, if that's the case, Beyer says it's better to just get the shots than to spend money doing an antibody test to find out if it's in your system. Michigan's one case of measles was reported last week in Oakland County in somebody who had traveled internationally. And finally, St. Joseph City Commissioners are pleased to announce and learn that lighthouse tours are going to continue this summer. Commissioner Tess Ulrey updated the commission this week on her efforts to ensure there's no interruption in the tours previously managed by the Heritage Museum and Cultural Center. Due to drastic reductions in the heritage operations, management of the tours has now fallen back on the city, which owns the lighthouse. Ulrey said, thankfully, volunteers who lead the tours have not gone away, and they're ready to get back at it in June.
What we really, really want to be able to do this year is to ensure that the lighthouse remains open for 2025. COVID taught us a lot, and I think one thing that it taught us as a community was that if things go away for a year, 2 years, the likelihood of them coming back just keeps falling off.
Ulrich said a new partner has been found to take the place of the Heritage Museum to manage the tours.
The structure that we're looking at is to be staffed completely by volunteers, but really managed by St. Joseph Today. St. Joseph Today has stepped up to the plate as a partner in this, and they are great at volunteer management, event management. This is really what they do.
Ulrich said the plan is to run the tours each Saturday in June, July, and August from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. It would be free to tour the first floor of the lighthouse, but then $5 to tour the upper levels. $5 is half of what it cost previously. Ulrich said she wants everyone to come and take a look at the inside of the landmark, telling colleagues a view of the city from its top level is indeed a sight to see. That is, commissioners indicated their support of the plan. That's a look at some of the news that we have in the WSJM newsroom. There's more to talk about. We'll get to that in a few minutes here. It's 7:11. It's the WSJM Morning Show, Wednesday, March 19th. Our guest in studio right now is MaryJo Schnell. She's the executive director of the OutCenter. Let's say a quick good morning to you. Good morning, MaryJo.
Good morning. So happy to be here.
We'll have the full interview. We'll understand a little bit more about the OutCenter and about the current discussions, let's say, that you have going on with the City of Benton Harbor over the permit for Pride Fest. But first off, maybe for those who don't know you, maybe just introduce yourself.
Sure.
Who's MaryJo?
My name is MaryJo Schnell. I use she, her pronouns. I am the executive director of OutCenter of Southwest Michigan. I've been 35 years in the nonprofit sector. I have to say, I've worked a lot of different positions, programs, fundraiser, executive director, across those 35 years, mostly in Chicago. And I will say this position I've had, which started out as an interim position in 2012
Wow.
through August 2015, where I became full-time. Hardest job I've ever had and the most rewarding. I think there was a lot of things I took for granted in the city of Chicago in terms of the protections LGBTQ people had, and it was a little bit of a culture shock to come over here in 2012, starting to commute initially, to realize just how little protections there were in place for LGBTQ people in Michigan. So, but I have to say, again, hardest but most rewarding job I've ever had.
Yeah. And can you talk about how that plays into the mission of the OutCenter?
Sure. So the OutCenter really works to create vibrant, successful, and inclusive communities where all people and their skills and what they bring to the table are appreciated, including life experience, right? And perspectives based on those life experiences. We really want to see Southwest Michigan. In our case, we serve Berrien, Cass, and Van Buren counties. Of course, we won't say no typically if somebody calls from outside that area.
Yeah.
To see those many communities across those counties really thrive and embrace their LGBTQ residents at every age, in every vocation, in every walk of life. We're here, we're everywhere. And that's really important for people to understand. Of course, back in 2012, the conversation was really quite different. And I felt like it was more of an open conversation that we were having with schools, with municipalities, with healthcare, you name it. And then throughout those years since I began, it's really quite interesting to chart the challenges of those conversations as political antics. I'm just going to say it that way. Political antics were kind of blasted off from D.C. or even the state legislature here in Michigan, and see who was going for it. Who was going to raise that flag and come after people like us, right? Yeah. So it's really been an interesting thing. I think the most amazing thing that I've relearned was the unique nature that we find in small town communities in rural areas where people really understand who each other, they're neighbors, and without the speaking points coming from outside the area, et cetera, how wonderfully civil and loving people can be.
Yeah. We're talking with MaryJo Schnell. She's the executive director of the OutCenter of Southwest Michigan, and we'll explore that. And you mentioned the politics, and you applied for a permit for an event.
Yeah.
in the city of Benton Harbor and were turned down for no apparent reason as of yet, at least stated by the city. So we'll talk about that. We'll explore that fully right here on the WSJM Morning Show. We have made a call to the Benton Harbor city officials as well,
fabulous.
and to invite them on. We haven't got a call back yet.
Right.
Yeah, so we'll continue this conversation in just a moment right here on the WSJM Morning Show. We'll be on the video live stream right now on the radio. We're going to get sports from Dave Wolf. And I mean no malice. I've made several calls to the city in my time here, and rarely do they get returned by the city officials who I've called. So I don't know if you found the same thing, but
well, I think for us there's more of an I mean, our approach is, I'm sure your approach is, we just want to understand.
Right.
And so typically it's the one-on-one in-person conversations that really matter.
Right.
And
because once those happen, you strike the relationship. You're right.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what we want. We want that. We want those relationships. Yeah. When I came into the OutCenter, it was so important for us to really drive towards developing partnerships.
Let's take a couple of steps back first. And by the way, make friends with that microphone or my engineer is going to get real mad at you. There you go. Perfect.
Okay.
Sorry. No, you're okay. He's an avid listener of the show, and so he says, I want to hear people. Make sure they get up on the microphone. So we've got just about a minute here before we get back on the radio, so let's not go too far in depth.
Okay.
But just give us a little bit of your background. So born in Elgin, you said?
Elgin, Illinois.
Where is Elgin in relation to Chicago?
River Valley, about 45 minutes drive into the city of Chicago.
Okay, so you're still pretty urban area.
Yeah, well, I think ex-urban. I think the city of Elgin, as the founding fathers would say, is older than Chicago.
Okay,
but they kind of got stuck.
They couldn't quite do the Chicago thing.
No.
Okay.
No. Yeah. So yeah.
Do you get back there very often?
No, not at all. Since my parents passed, not really at all.
How about Chicago?
Oh my gosh, I wish I could.
Yeah.
I haven't been back for a couple of years. Phenomenal place. Have amazing memories there. And I have to say, for those of you who go into the city and you stay in the loop, don't.
Really?
Get out into the neighborhoods.
Oh, okay.
Find those communities and those restaurants that are the most amazing food you will ever eat, the most amazing people you will ever meet.
Yeah.
And it's a phenomenal place to get to know.
Yeah. We'll talk more about that in just a moment right here on the WSJM Morning Show. We're talking with MaryJo Schnell, Executive Director of the OutCenter.
Mostly cloudy skies today. Will be dry this morning, but we do expect to see some scattered rain showers this afternoon. Strong thunderstorms are possible this evening. High temperatures will be around 60 degrees. Tonight, we drop down to 33. We'll see the rain change over to snow. We see light snow during the day tomorrow with highs at 37. We're back to the 50s on Friday. I'm Chief Meteorologist Carrie Peugeot.
The Morning Show with Ken and Friends on 94.9 WSJM.
719 WSJM Morning Show continues. Good morning. I'm Ken Lundberg here with me. This morning, I have a special guest in studio. It's MaryJo Schnell. She's the Executive Director of the OutCenter of Southwest Michigan. Thank you again for joining us this morning. And we were just getting into talking a little bit about, you were going to tell me, you didn't know this yet, you were going to tell me your favorite ice cream place in Chicago.
What?
Last time Stephanie and I went to Chicago, I don't know where she found it, but there was this ice cream place, and right across the street practically was a comic book store.
Oh my God.
I mean, talk about heaven right there. No. Do you have a favorite place to eat?
Oh my gosh.
Ice cream in Chicago?
No.
All right. Think about it.
I'm going to think about that because I'm sure I've gee whiz, kids.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
All right. So let's get back to the matters at hand. You're the Executive Director of the OutCenter, but first let's talk a little bit about who you are. You mentioned that you were born and raised in Elgin, Illinois, about 45 minutes out of Chicago.
Yep.
Ex-urban area,
Yep.
and then you were in Chicago for a while. Where'd you go to school? What'd you do?
Sure.
Tell us about your life.
Well, what brought me into Chicago was pursuing my Master's of Fine Arts at the Art Institute of Chicago.
Oh,
The
nice.
School of the Art Institute of Chicago.
Okay.
And so, and unlike what maybe a lot of people think about all of the programs offered, the kind of arc that I went for was art and society. At what point can artists and engage in societal topics and cultural topics in ways that are meaningful, potentially shining the light on something less seen or experienced, that kind of a thing. So I got my degree after 2 years, and I worked for my first position in the nonprofit sector, to be honest, was the Randolph Street Gallery. And that was an alternative nonprofit arts organization. And we solidly positioned ourselves between art and society and said, okay, where are the artists working either in the public sphere or in collaborative with communities, developing art that was making statements, making change, and really trying to kind of pivot conversations. So there was I think a study called, my goodness, what was it called? Something about working in a studio, how artists work on their what they're expressing. Studio thinking, that's what it was called. And I found that to be very true for how I've lived my life to date, but then also at Randolph Street Gallery. And so studio thinking, in a way, it was opening up your perception to anything in your field of vision, and then what you can't see, go find it. And so there's a kind of free association. You're liberated from a narrative structure that's how to get from A to B to C, and you go digging. And it's just been, it was a very liberating experience, the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and even more so to then be a curator at Randolph Street Gallery and really have an opportunity to talk with artists from all over the country, because we were bringing them in from New York, from all of the coasts, right?
Wow. Yeah.
Including the Chicago coast. And it was really an amazing conversation, or I'll say millions of conversations with artists that were performance artists, experimental film, video, sculptors, kinetic sculptors, painters, photographers, collage, you name it. And it was just so amazing to kind of find all of these human experiences from the diversity of voices of artists that we had at the gallery. And that was in part what launched my pursuit into nonprofit organizations that were focused on social justice.
Okay.
And that became kind of my core calling within the nonprofit sector. Because we brought in Spider Woman Theater from Brooklyn, which was a Native American women's theater company, and we commissioned to work for them, from them, working with the Native American community in Chicago, as well as a women's women of color theater company. And just, again, and this was, 1988, 89? And, kind of really took me to school. What I didn't know was a lot. What I continue to not know is still a lot. But I'm living in the question. I consider myself a lifetime learner, and I think that really helps in terms of the artistic background, right?
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know. And that was actually become one of the core ideologies, maybe, or protocols for the OutCenter is you come in eyes open, ears open, and prepared to learn. And we understand, too, that people don't know what they don't know about people like me.
Yeah.
They don't know until they meet someone and have a conversation. So education, social justice, lifelong learner, I think that's a really nice set of traits or skills to carry with you in your backpack as an executive director. And I've been amazing. How do I want to say this? And I continue to be, that's what it is. I continue to be surprised by people's hearts and minds and desires to see their communities grow and kind of glow in the presence of diversity. And that's been also exciting. In no matter the din of the conversations and the politics and the spears and everything else, the darts, everything being thrown at everybody, there is still this underlying beat of that's not us. That's not us. Remember, that's not us. and coming back to that reality and finding those realities in other people, which has been significant for, I think, us as an organization in terms of growth, but also me as an individual in terms of my own growth. I'm 62 and I'm still growing, and I love that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been a really interesting a couple of connecting points between my personal life and then the kind of position I'm in now, but also the work we're doing as an organization.
Yeah. Let me just say, and again, we're talking with MaryJo Schnell. She's the executive director of the OutCenter. So you're in Chicago. You go to school. You get your degree. You get involved in galleries and then social justice, and so you start working in the nonprofits community. How did Southwest Michigan get on your radar? How did the OutCenter get on your radar?
My brother Bill.
Oh, okay.
My brother Bill and his family who live in Benton Harbor, and we're pretty close, I would say. Absolutely, we're the closest. I'm closest with him of all of our siblings, but and so love that relationship. And Jane, my sister-in-law, and Aiden, my nephew, and so. It was years ago. It was even before I took the interim position in October 2012, when I was coming over from Chicago to kind of get a respite from the city and hang out, And it just that was the welcome mat, the entrance, just the entrance into the community. They introduced me to people who founded the OutCenter. And at that time, they were seeking a 501c3 certification from the IRS. And so they asked me for help on that. So that was it just evolved. And again, it's kind of the nature of these small town community networks. So do you know who, and do you know who, and you don't,
Yeah. So what role did you come in as?
The interim executive director.
Interim executive director, and you held that role for several years.
3, yep.
3 years.
Yep, August,
They couldn't make a decision what was going on?
No. So number one, I was certified as an interim executive director from Executive Service Corps in Chicago. It was a 9-month certification process of learn from the best.
Okay.
And so you come in, and the 3 chapters really are prepare, pivot, thrive, and of course none is clean cut. And the prepare was fix what's broken, clean up the shop, get operations back online, and then the pivot is, okay, where are we? What are the needs? And what are the resources that will sustain what scope of needs?
Okay.
And it came very quickly to us and the board at the time that we didn't have a lot of income, mostly individual donors and some Arcus Foundation money, but not a lot of local investment from area foundations. So that's what we started to do, is find out where we were going to see or hear a yes.
Okay.
And then we kind of came back to the table and said, okay, what can we do with this kind of an amount? And that was $68,000 in the bank. That was it. And the organization had been, because of need, just in the position of, okay, somebody so-and-so needs help with the car payment, their rent, the da-da-da. So very service-oriented, very let's get people the funds they need. We pivoted away from that because that was not sustainable. We weren't able to build, and we weren't able to kind of focus on advocacy too. And so what we realized was there were other nonprofits that were in positions to provide this kind of support. Let's educate them so that our communities, and let's give the organization some breathing room to really start to look at advocacy efforts within local communities, but also how are we connected? Why aren't we connected with the state? What about our siblings across the state that are LGBTQ centers? And then we also ask the very real question of who's the most vulnerable. You hate to ask that question. But when you only got $68,000 in the bank and you're trying to do the biggest impact possible, you got to find out where the most significant need is, and that turned out to be LGBTQ kids in rural areas, which was something that the movement in Chicago, as much as I learned from that, was not. It's so different. There was a need for support to LGBTQ youth, but it wasn't in a rural area where they were, miles and miles away from anything. They couldn't just jump on the green line or the pink line. They couldn't jump on a public transportation to find help and resources and community.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to explore the OutCenter, what you've been doing since then.
Okay.
In just a moment, right here on the WSJM Morning Show. We've got to get a couple of messages in and our Bloomberg Market Minute. We'll get the latest from ABC News as well, right here on the WSJM Morning Show. We're going to continue the interview on the video live stream, and then we'll come back on the radio in just a few minutes here on WSJM.
Have you been thinking about...
All right, and then we continue on our video live stream. Good morning, and thanks for joining us. It is 7:31, and we've got news coming up in just a moment. Let me get this in order. This is the behind the scenes. We keep going on the microphone on the camera, MaryJo, but and it's MaryJo, right?
Yep.
Okay.
MJ works fine too.
MJ. Very
Short,
good.
sweet, and to the point.
Okay. Tell us about the OutCenter again. For those who are unaware of what it is or what it does, they may have heard the name, but they don't really know much more than that. What is it that that the OutCenter is?
So, number one, OutCenter is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and it's not just me at all. In fact, for the first time in the organization's history, a couple of years ago, actually just last year, we hired our third full-time staff.
Oh.
This is huge. And so we have Garrick Maverick, who is our program director, has been with us for, I think, a little over 3 years. And then Willow Sipling, who is our director of engagement and operations, who came to us, began in April 2024. And it's a phenomenal team. I've never been so happy in such a small organization, in such a large and complicated area, to be with such competent, amazing, brilliant, and I'll say visionary staff members. We see each other's skills. We work well together, and there's often times when we're on the phone together, chatting together, or in the meetings, kind of brainstorming together and clicking on all cylinder. It's just really wonderful. And of course, then we also have an amazing board. We just brought 2 more board members on, and we're pretty excited about that team in terms of governance as well. What the OutCenter does is provide, on one level, support and guidance to LGBTQ people, a lot of families of LGBTQ kids, and allies, to be honest, who are looking for direction and how can I have an impact, and what board meetings do you need folks to attend just to have that ear to the ground. So it's been phenomenal. I think the big thing that we've always been as a common denominator to the organization, at least since I've been there, and I think much before I've been there, advocacy. And I'm not talking lobbying, that's C4 predominantly. I'm talking advocacy. Advocacy for, and I'll say it this way, the core of advocacy, education. The core of any social justice movement, education. People don't know what they don't know. Another, like I said, the drumbeat that I've been talking about today. And so that's been huge. But I will say, with the election results in November 2024, we did a pivot. We did a pretty big pivot. We realized we were going to need more time with advocacy. And so we really started to focus more on what we're calling protocols for an inclusive future in our area.
Protocols for what does that mean?
What are our common hoped for elements of community where LGBTQ people belong, are affirmed, not tolerated. Think about that word. We're going to tolerate you. No. Where there's a very real sense of belonging, a very real sense of affirmation, inclusion, equity, you name it. And, understanding, of course, that when all people are valued equally and equitably, we actually improve our systems because we're listening to different perspectives. The more diverse that information is from diverse experiences, the better we can get, right? It's better information because it's more information from diverse experiences. And so that's a huge thing. And we all want safe communities. We all want a sense of belonging. We all want to be able to thrive, not just survive. We all want to not suffer anymore from stereotypes, whether those are gender stereotypes or sexual orientation stereotypes.
One moment, please. Sorry, I've got a
You
time
got it.
crunch here. We'll be right back.
Bloomberg Radio.
The Morning Show with Ken Lundberg on WSJM.
7:35, it's the WSJM Morning Show. Good morning, I'm Ken Lundberg. It is Wednesday, March 19th. Enjoy today, or at least enjoy the non-snow that we have for the moment, because we may get some snowfall again this evening. Yeah, that's the weather forecast. We do have a chance of some strong thunderstorms this evening. So today's forecast, mostly cloudy, a 60% chance of showers and some evening thunderstorms. Some could be strong. High around 63 today, and south winds gusting all the way up to 35 miles per hour. Tonight, we keep the wind, and it gets even stronger, in fact. So it's going to be cloudy tonight, an 80% chance of rain changing to snow. Low around 33 degrees overnight, windy conditions, gusting up to 40 miles per hour. Tomorrow, Thursday, mostly cloudy and a 60% chance of snow. Now, we'll have that snow, and while there may not be an accumulation, there's going to be a lot of wind, right? And so we're going to have the visibility issues if the snow starts to crank up. So, and the winds are going to be out of the northwest, so they're shifting to up to 35 miles per hour. So, if you haven't battened the hatches down by now, everything's out of your yard. So just, go with it. And then it's going to get sunny again on Friday with a high around 53. We've got the latest world and national news now from ABC. We'll be back. We're talking with Executive Director of the OutCenter of Southwest Michigan, MaryJo Schnell. Excuse me. We will continue that conversation in just a moment here on WSJM.
ABC News, I'm Sherry Preston. Now it's his turn. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he will talk today with President Trump. Yesterday, the president had a phone call with Vladimir Putin, at which Putin did not agree to a ceasefire, but did agree to stop the bombardment of Ukrainian infrastructure. Former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, Steve Pfeiffer, is not encouraged, at least not so far anyway.
I fear that we're not moving closer to actually getting to a real negotiation where both sides make compromises. Thus far, we've seen really, I don't think, any serious flexibility on the Russian side.
Israel continuing airstrikes across Gaza, the bombardment shattering the 6-week ceasefire that had been in place. A rare statement from Supreme Court Justice John Roberts rebuking President Trump's call for the impeachment of a federal judge who ruled against his administration. Another judge ruling against Trump's executive order banning transgender people serving in the U.S. military. This is ABC News.
WSJM News Now. Team coverage from the WSJM Newsroom on News Talk Sports 94.9 WSJM.
7:38, WSJM Morning Show continues. I'm Ken Lundberg. Some of the news that we'll have for you at 8 o'clock today. Benton Township will soon be getting its first marijuana retailer. At their regular meeting on Tuesday, the Benton Township Board of Trustees approving a permit application. The new place will be known as the Crew Cannabis Company. It'll be at 2390 Pipestone Road in Benton Township. Let's see, other news that we're covering. The OutCenter of Southwest Michigan still seeking answers from the City of Benton Harbor for why it was denied a permit to hold its Pride Fest this summer at the Dwight P. Mitchell City Center Park. It just so happens that we have OutCenter Executive Director MaryJo Schnell here in studio. So we'll talk exactly about that question. That's coming up in just a few minutes. And other news that we'll be covering at 8 o'clock, site preparations are slated to begin this week for the new Lakeshore Trail, a multi-use trail along M63 between Harbor Shores and Whirlpool headquarters. We'll tell you all about that and how you can help get involved by maybe even helping with some funding. That is coming up at 8 o'clock this morning. It's 7:39. We've got sports coming up next with Dave Wolf. First, a look at state news from the Michigan News Network.
The Michigan News Network.
All right, back on the video live stream.
Yes.
Okay, so we're talking with MaryJo Schnell, Executive Director of the OutCenter of Southwest Michigan. And thanks again for joining us this morning. We really appreciate it.
I'm very happy to be here.
Tell us a little bit about some of the programs that you have at the OutCenter.
Sure. We also, I touched a little bit about that on a couple of them, the ones that we do. The ones that I really wanted to focus on really is the LGBTQ Competent Health Care and Patient Safety Project, funded in part by United Way of Southwest Michigan. And this is a very much of a concerted effort to educate healthcare providers across the three-county area that we serve, Barron, Cass, and Van Buren, regarding the disparities, healthcare disparities that LGBTQ people experience, some of the reasons why, as well as what competent care can look like. So some of the systems in our area have already introduced into their intake forms pronouns, for example. The name that might be on their legal records, but their chosen name, not preferred name, their chosen name. And how everybody from the front desk to intake to in the exam room and records, all of that, to have that just be our identities respected, affirmed, and provided the health care that everybody else expects, right? Or already receives. Where they're not necessarily rolling their eyes because of how you appear in front of them. And I think for some folks who have bias, it's really quite obvious when they just haven't had the opportunity to understand SOGI, sexual orientation and gender identity. It's the lesser explored of all of our all of our personalities and personhoods. And so that's been an incredible initiative, great conversations with clinicians, with healthcare systems. I sit on the Corewell Health LGBTQ EIT team, and we meet a couple of times a month, and these are the topics of conversation, and that's phenomenal, right? The other LGBTQ Safe Schools project, we've been working with schools since 2014. The Safe Schools project, initially funded by United Way of Southwest Michigan in 2017, was similar. It was educate, educate, educate. And our workshops we're not shaking our fingers at each other. We're not looking to butt heads. We're looking for common ground. We're looking for common understanding, and we're looking to build empathy and understanding. And from that point, so much more can be achieved in terms of openness, understanding, and improving improving policies and protocols on how LGBTQ students are, treated. We understand in Berrien County, for example, that 21.6% of the student population identify. That's 1 in 5, right? And yet almost half, not because of who they are, but because of how they're being treated, seriously considered self-harm, et cetera, like even worse. And that's not okay, right? That's not okay. And that's the other thing to really understand about our programs. We use data. We are interested in, really making sure that the research is showing us the way, as well as the kids are telling us the way. As same with patients, that the research shows us the way and the patients tell us, right? So that's really, really important. Our Teen Pride program is a program that helps schools understand how best to support some of the student-led clubs. They used to be, Gay Straight Alliances. Now they're Genders and Sexualities Alliance. And those clubs in schools are so important because a lot of times these kids are avoiding after school and extracurriculars because they're already not feeling well treated in their school. They're being bullied, or they're more under scrutiny because of who they are. And what's important for college apps? Extracurriculars. You know? And at what point does a child like that have an opportunity for leadership development at the school? If they're, too afraid to walk down the hallways or don't want to stay after school because they're not out to their parents. And so what are the options for them? So it's really just really important that schools and school leaders and school board members, to be honest, really understand the needs of these children and the disparities that they are suffering more so than any other student in their population, and respond to those accordingly. So, and it's been phenomenal. The schools we've worked with since 2014 and watching the different kind of folks within those schools go from principal to superintendent, et cetera, and watching some of those folks really advance those understandings among their staff has been just amazing.
So a lot of advocacy, a lot of awareness, a lot of making certain that your voice is represented. When policy, especially when policy decisions are being made.
Well, we always say it's hearts, minds, policy. So it's like the stories that you get to know somebody, you share, you connect. And then a lot of times when you've had that story and you've been taught something else, there has to be a reconciliation, right? Otherwise, it's just, it's a place of tension, uncertainty, grief a lot of times. And so the more they meet people like me and understand we're just people and want the same things typically that they want, and understand where some of the bias is coming from, and we always call it the unholy trinity.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We're going to have to get back on the radio.
Right, I get you.
All right, we'll be right back. We're talking with MaryJo Schnell, Executive Director of the OutCenter of Southwest Michigan. Back in just a moment.
Skies today will be dry this morning, but we do expect to see some scattered rain showers this afternoon. Strong thunderstorms are possible this evening. High temperatures will be around 60 degrees. Tonight, we drop down to 33. We'll see the rain change over to snow. We see light snow during the day tomorrow with highs at 37. We're back to the 50s on Friday. I'm Chief Meteorologist Carrie Peugeot.
The Morning Show with Ken Lundberg on WSJM.
WSJM Morning Show continues. Our special good morning. I'm Ken Lundberg, and it's Wednesday, March 19th. We are at 7:46. See, this hour just goes so quickly.
I know.
The hour just goes so quickly. But I will tell you that as we've been talking, one of the issues, including in the news here, that we've been talking about over the last few weeks is so we're talking with MaryJo Schnell, Executive Director of the OutCenter. The OutCenter has an annual celebration, Pride Fest.
Yes.
And you've held it in years prior at the Dwight P. Mitchell City Center Park in Benton Harbor. You went to apply for a permit to hold Pride Fest 2025 in the park. What happened?
We were denied the permit. I will say, though, prior to that, we actually had a conversation with City Manager Alex Little and Director of Public Safety Daniel McGinnis, and tried to find a common, tried to get some answers to why they didn't enforce the policies, the permit policies in 2024 when protesters showed up.
Yeah, so in 2024, you had Pride Fest happening, and there was a group of protesters who disrupted the event
and traumatized people.
And there was no intervention by police at that time. Why was there no intervention at that time?
I can tell you, number one, the policies, when you get a permit for the city, there's policies, and there's a little bit of a difference, it turns out, from their permit policies and the ordinance for public parks. The policies, as we were provided and we signed on to, allowed for law enforcement to remove people for inappropriate behavior.
Okay.
And that didn't happen. So when these folks showed up and were traumatizing our community members at the event, we called the police and showed them the policy in the permit.
Right.
Police called the city attorney, and the city attorney, who told me later, she made the call to leave them there.
The protesters,
right in the middle of our event, right in the middle of the park that we had a permit to use.
Right.
And she said the reason for that was because she was driving and didn't have access to the policies, so she just called it without any guidance from any policy.
So was she essentially saying she made the wrong call?
Yeah, and she apologized.
Okay.
So fast forward, the conversation was okay in November with Alex and Daniel, Mr. Little and Mr. McGinnis, was to say, what's going to happen next year? Like, what does enforcement look like? Because we still want City Center because, oh my gosh. And if you've ever been, it's the most amazing event in the center of such an amazing community that is so diverse. It's just brilliant how diverse it is. And so it was just really a phenomenal thing. And everybody was saying that, right? They're just like, oh my gosh, look at the diversity on this city block. And everybody just, the camaraderie across all of that diversity was just, it was nirvana. It was it was phenomenal. I don't know where else that happens in this area, but I'm sure it does, which is great. But we were happy that we could be part of that.
But you applied for the permit for the 2025,
and
given that context.
That's right.
And were denied.
That's right.
Why were you denied?
Good question. Some of the quotes from Mr. Little at the point at that's been documented, I think well documented in the press, was because of complications and protesters. And my whole thing is, hey, listen, the protesters never would have been an issue if you had enforced what the permit says you're supposed to enforce.
Mm-hmm.
They're traumatizing our communities. Your job, law enforcement, is to then take that away. In other words, just create safety for everybody. And that the permit allowed them to do just that. And they could just say, hey, just go across the street. You can do this on the sidewalk, right? That's the policy.
But do you think it's because of what the OutCenter does that Benton Harbor has decided no?
It's starting to feel a little bit like that. Initially, I was just, no, there's no way. That can't be it. Or, of course, maybe that's my Chicago speaking. But staff kind of worked with me on that. Said, MJ.
Where are you now?
I think that, I really think that this is an issue of not wanting to have queer people in public parks. And I think in the large part, and I don't want to say this, I'll say it this way. How it feels to me is they don't want queer people in that park. And I don't know, and that's, again, my feeling about this. We've had so many conversations. We've provided statements to the commission. We've had conversations with commissioners. We know that there's a lot of tough feelings among commissioners about this. Our hope is that we have an opportunity to maybe have a conversation with the commissioners rather than just provide statements, right? And just say, listen, we know how to do this. We know how to do these events safely. We even offered in the permit to provide even more security. We were basically taking away any of the issues they cited as potential challenges to their ability to keep everybody safe. Enforce your policies. That's what keeps people safe. And we'll even help supplement whatever law enforcement that looks like. We want people safe too. And so when you say all of that and you make all of those efforts and offers, and yet we're still not allowed into that space, and I can't imagine, Ken, what kind of policy would allow for this that's not it's unconstitutional.
Yeah.
And it's discrimination. And I don't know what kind of policy they could develop with their city attorney's input, according to Mr. Little at the last city commission meeting, that would allow for discrimination. And so right now they're saying that they have to be city sponsored or governmentally related, and they're still probably writing that, but I think they're going to have a really hard time writing that.
What are you considering legal action?
Dear God. So personally, I would say I don't want to see that. The city doesn't need it. We don't need it. Everything else that's going on in the country, we don't need it.
Right.
We would like to find common ground. We would like to just acknowledge whatever happened. Let's leave it behind us. But come on now. We're all in this together. The powers that be out of D.C. are trying to kind of create more and more division among us. Let's, in every town in Southwest Michigan, say no. The common denominator is we are all in this together. We all deserve safety, access to parks, affirmation, belonging, and the ability to thrive in our local economies.
Next step, if Benton Harbor, the city of Benton Harbor, doesn't budge and they still don't allow this permit approval.
Well, I will go back to my board. That's a conversation at that point with the governor. I mean, it's always been kind of keeping the executive committee, et cetera, informed about this, but that would be a larger conversation with our board and attorney. Understanding what I just said, we don't need this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But we also don't need those kinds of policies.
Yeah. It seems to me as if that's kind of the bottom line here is how do you as an advocacy organization stand back and say, okay, we'll let that slide.
Right.
When the precedent has been you were there, you were following the policies, the city was not.
Right. And I think that's the thing is that we can't let something like this slide at this time. We have to make it known that this is happening. We cannot allow this kind of thing to happen without shining the light on it. It's the perfect example of the kind of work we all need to be doing right now as multiple communities coming together as one voice to say, this is America, this is not America. Here I am living in the United States as a citizen. This is what that looks like. This is what it doesn't look like. That we take our country back in every small way that we can and every large way we can. And in terms of advocacy, again, it comes down to educate, educate, educate. If the city commissioners in smaller groups want to have an offline conversation, please, let's get there. Let's get there sooner than later. Nobody needs this, especially now. And here's the other thing. The LGBTQ community has been so targeted with this new administration, so horribly targeted. More specifically, trans kids and trans people. Just enough. The more we allow for this thing to happen, the more I think people will jump on and say, yeah, see, we can do this. It's like you concede that power in advance and you teach those kinds of folks what exactly they can do. We can't let them do that here.
Yeah, we're talking with MaryJo Schnell. She's the executive director of the OutCenter. We'll come back to conclude this interview in just a moment, right here on the WSJM Morning Show.
By Greenmark Equipment and Follock Farms.
All right, I think we're good here. We're back on the video live stream here for just the last couple of minutes. Thank you so much for coming in today.
You bet. Thank
Appreciate
you very much
that.
again.
Your staff calmed down on the texts.
I know. Well,
did you tell them you're going to be on this morning?
I think I did. I didn't realize it was live stream, so I was just like, okay, I got the 7 a.m. and da-da-da-da. But and so it was just when I got in here and you said that, I'm just like, da-da-da-da. So no, but again, this is it. We are tag team. We are tag team, and I love that. Yeah. I love that we can convene and with surprises or no surprises, that we're there for each other and backing each other up.
If people want to get more information about the OutCenter, about this issue or other issues, or just want to refer a friend, how do they get in touch?
Probably the best way is info@outcenter.org. You can go to our website at outcenter.org and find out more about our organization, the Protocol for an Inclusive Future. And by the way, another thing we're really taking to heart is downloading as much information as we have learned about how to successfully work with school boards, municipalities, libraries, you name it, and providing those strategies and I'll say sample public comments, et cetera, online. We want to see more people really get involved and kind of activated in a way that's going to say, no, this is the kind of community I want to belong to. Yeah. And I want that, and my friends and neighbors want that, and my family wants that.
Okay. All right. We and go to the website as well. Your website, do you want to give that?
Website is outcenter.org, OUTCENTER.org.
Okay, we'll come back and wrap this interview up in just a moment right here on WSJM. Sorry, my timing is off this morning, so I'm
no worries.
Doing the thing on here. All right, feel like it is. We'll be right back on the WSJM Morning Show.
Licensed, experienced, and insured?
Yes, you should. Call the experts and feel at ease with McGee's. They know the rules and they don't cut corners. Trust the people that care, who know how to do it right the first time. All you need to do is work with McGee's once to see the difference, and they'll be the first call every time. Feel at ease with McGee's. Call today for your estimate. Feel at ease with
McGee's. From the Pat Moody Studios, this is WSJM FM Benton Harbor, St. Joseph, a product of Midwest Family Marketing and Media. Proudly serving our community. The Morning Show with Ken and Friends on 94.9 WSJM.
7:59. MaryJo Schnell, Executive Director of the OutCenter. Thank you for being the guest this morning.
Thank you so much. We're so proud to always respond to an invitation from WSJM and Midwest Family Broadcasting. We're so happy to also be a recipient of sponsorship for Midwest Family Broadcasting. But more specifically, we're very grateful for the news. that you and your team provides.
We will bring that right back in just a moment. It's 8 o'clock.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he will be speaking with President Trump today following the discussion the president had yesterday with Vladimir Putin. That phone call did not result in a ceasefire, but it did lead to a promise that Russia would not bomb Ukraine's infrastructure. ABC's James Longwood with more from Kyiv.
As far as Russia is concerned, this is a win for Vladimir Putin. He is normalizing the relationship.
Okay. Sorry about that, Mary Jo.
That's okay.
I cut you off midstream when you were thanking us, so please.
No, we just, ever since I arrived in 2012, we've been very, very grateful for the number of stations, Midwest Family Broadcasting, reaching out to us to find out more about what we're doing, what we're up to, and the number of interviews, conversations have been just a really phenomenal common denominator in our effort to educate and to let folks know the services and the that are available to them and the ways that we can help.
Yeah, if you missed any part of this interview, thank you very much. We appreciate you. We appreciate what the organization is and does in the community. And we anytime you want to come back and give us an update on what's happening, especially with regard to Benton Harbor, the city of,
we'll take you up on that.
Let us know.
Thank you.
Whether you like it or not, we're going to continue reporting it. That goes for Benton Harbor as well. All right, so that's the WSJM Morning Show. If you miss any part of this show anytime, or you want to share this with a friend, just go to our Facebook page or YouTube page. And for WSJM, we have the videos archived there. You can go back and share it at your heart's content. It's 8 o'clock. It means we've got to get back to more news. But thank you for joining us on the WSJM Morning Show. Back tomorrow with more.
Jim Ryan, ABC News.
More extreme fire danger across a large portion of the country.